Hey folks, Michelle Perlman here, gastroenterologist and physician nutrition specialist.
And I'm Amy Perlman, urologist, men's health, and sexual medicine specialist.
Welcome to Perlman MD's podcast.
We are going to tackle all topics related to nutrition, sexual health, exercise, and mindfulness. Stay tuned. Hey, party people. How are we doing today?
Hey,
Hey guys. Hey.
All right. I have my buddy Johnny here on the line. So Johnny, tell us, where did you grow up and where do you currently live?
Well, it's nice to join you both. I'm a big fan. I'm from Grand Forks, North Dakota, which is way up north. And I'm sure everybody can kind of tell with my accent where I'm from, but I'm about an hour and a half away from the Canadian border. So that's where I was born and raised. I grew up in Grand Forks, and now I'm currently in Iowa. So I've made my way south. I'm making my way.
Yeah, it's super warm in Iowa. You're making your way down.
South. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So a big gap of time between, where you grew up and where you're at now. So you are a former athlete. What sports did you play growing up?
Growing up, I kind of did it all. When you're living in those conditions, you kind of roll with the seasons. So I played hockey, I played football, I played baseball. I couldn't really dribble a basketball. I wasn't very good at that, but I tried. Did a lot of just anything outdoors. Played tennis a little bit. In terms of sanctioned sports or high school athletics, I played baseball and hockey and football. But growing up as a kid, just played it all. So
awesome. And then did you play in college as well?
Yeah. And then I played baseball in college. So I went to a few different schools. I went the JUCO route, and then I went to a 4-year. And then after that, I was lucky enough to get a coaching job. So baseball was a big part of my life growing up, and then also turned into my professional life early on. And yeah, I was really lucky to do that and make my way with baseball a little bit.
Awesome. And then how many years were you a coach for?
8 years. I was a head coach for 7, and I was an assistant for 2. So actually 9 years.
Wow.
So a big portion. Yeah. I was right after I finished college. I landed a grad assistant position. So I was able to get my master's from the school that I played with, and rolled right into coaching. So it was kind of unexpected. I wasn't always planning to do that, but once things kind of took off, I fell in love with it, and my roles just kept getting a little bit bigger. And it was being a part of a team was something that I really liked to do, and just, without even stepping away from it, I just always knew that being a part of a team was something that I really liked. And, just the camaraderie and just the team aspect was something that was really just the culture. And so when you go from player to coach, you really start to understand how that kind of stuff doesn't just happen,
So I want to hear a little bit more about that. When you mentioned culture, how do you create that culture of teamwork and camaraderie? Like, what are some of those finer details of what that might look like in a day?
Yeah, that's a good question. And definitely something that you never really know. When things are good, and you also know when there's things missing. So I think as a team, what we would try to do right off the bat was just identify who we are as people, how we want to represent ourselves as a school, as people, as a team, amongst the campus, amongst the professors. So just really outlining who we are, because I think a fake culture is extremely easy to spot. And in terms of sports, I'm a big believer that it makes it difficult to win when you're not truly being yourselves, and you can't hold your teammates accountable. When you're not on the same page, when you're not in sync, when you're not able to have the tough conversations, when you can't admit when you make mistakes, when you can't do things like that, I think it really goes a long ways in terms of athletic success, growing, culture, just as you're developing as a person. I think those things go a long way. So accountability was a big word that we used a lot. Starting at the top. As coaches, we had to set the example as well of, when we made a mistake or when we did something silly, or if we weren't prepared maybe for a practice, I wanted my players to be able to see that and understand that, because that's the kind of standards I held them to. whether it was their academic performance or being on time for things, or just something as simple as wearing the right shirt to practice, doing your laundry, which it's a trickle effect where when you hold each other accountable and to high standards, especially I think at that age when it's easy to kind of get distracted or to get lost a little bit, and mom and dad aren't around anymore, you're off to college and you're in that world. Those little things I think go a long way. So for us, we just made it as fun as we could, but we also instilled that it was it's going to make a lasting impression on our season, on how we grow as a team by just simply being accountable.
So when you were in college, what sort of guidance did people give you as far as what was going to happen when you stopped playing? Because most people after college don't continue playing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I was one of those people, obviously, that knew early on that, professional athletics was probably not in my in my future. And so it was really important for me. Like I said, I was really fortunate to have the coaches I had and the guidance and the role models that they were to build me for the next level. They didn't want me to identify as, hi, I'm John Greicar, I'm a baseball player. We had to learn how to identify as people and what are some of our other strengths and what are the things what are our goals outside of the playing field? What are we studying? What kind of classes are we enjoying? Just challenging us to really think outside of the box and to put us in a position to be not only successful in our young adult life, but in life in general. And as a professional, when we reach that professional workforce, we wanted to be ready, and they wanted us to really know who we were as people. And so I think asking those right questions and helping us identify as who we were as a person, opposed to always saying, hi, I'm John Greicar, I'm a baseball player. I think
I
that
love
was
that. I've never heard anyone word it like that before. And I think that's awesome. We always try to pigeonhole ourselves into, I'm Amy Perlman, I'm a urologist, I'm Michelle Perlman, I'm a gastroenterologist. But if we open it up to say, hey, I'm Amy Perlman and I am a urologist, but I'm also an educator, a teacher, a researcher.
Right.
I like to do podcasts, like all these other things. And to open that up. And especially, to have that message for young people in their early 20s, I think that's a beautiful thing. Wow. You and your program did an awesome job with those young men.
Well, because you also see online when people have in whatever profile, whether it's on social media or whatnot, it says like, John, former D1 athlete, like that's their identity. Well, what are they now? They're probably so much more now, but that's what they identify as, a former collegiate athlete. Or I've seen things like washed up athlete and things like that, where that's how people describe themselves, but there's so much more than that after.
Right. And that goes a long ways in terms of how they feel about themselves, their self-esteem. If that's how they, like I said, I was taught this kind of stuff. So it wasn't just me that I mirrored what I was taught, but people identify, if students are identifying as just an athlete their whole career, once that's taken away, where are you going to be from a mental standpoint? And that's a pretty severe drop off when all of a sudden you're maybe the big shot on campus, or you're doing some pretty, you're always in the spotlight, to all of a sudden now you're entering a job where you're back to phase one. It's a challenge. And I think you can turn that into a positive by preparing students for that and that grit of starting back over, but also identifying that there's more to life than the sports that you're playing, and identifying as to who you really are as a person to make you, ready for that next step.
Okay. So let's talk about, so you transitioned from being a coach for 9 years into medical device sales. So what's similar about being on a team in healthcare and working with physicians and trainees and people in sales and being a coach? Are there similarities? Did your experience as a coach prepare you for your current job?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I was really excited about, was making the transition. I knew I was going to be missing some things. And fortunately, I'm around a great group of people. That camaraderie is definitely there. The accountability is there. And so those are things that, again, we would preach as coaches, I used to be told that by my own coaches as well, that, hey, this is the real world. And as serious as we take this, that's going to be a reflection of how things are going to go later on, whether you're at your job or, you got to be a good person. You got to be accountable. All those little things really carried over. And this new position, it's been it's been a challenge for sure. And that's something that I've enjoyed was the challenge and learning new things. But ultimately being around people that are competitive, that get after it. They enjoy adversity and they like getting after it and just being positive.
Awesome. So John, let's talk a little bit about what your role was as a coach in terms of like a mental health provider, as a counselor, a psychologist, all those different sort of hats that you played. What were those conversations like? Would players come to you with different concerns regarding their mental health, and how would you direct them?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. It's something you don't really think about. I know as a young coach, I was blown away by what my real actual day-to-day duties were compared to what I thought it was, the X's and O's, and thinking I'm just going to get to sit in the office and do a practice plan all day. It was very early on when I was an assistant coach, hearing my head coach at the time and the conversations he would have on a daily basis. His office door was a revolving door of just players coming in about, maybe grades, and then all of a sudden you have a girlfriend problem, and then you have a player that's parents maybe getting a divorce. Somebody's had just a death in their family. Just so many different, another players coming in to quit. Just you can be taken so many different ways throughout the day. And that was something that I learned early on of you got to be ready. And again, you had to be true to yourself too. Cause again, you want to be able to relate to your players. And I think that's a big part of it, is to be able to be a real person and have those same challenges. So I coached at a pretty small campus, and the people that I had on campus, they had to wear a lot of different hats. So we had one campus nurse who was just incredible. But she had 1,000 kids that she was dealing with. So getting time with her was quick. And again, she was incredible. And I don't know how she was able to do as much as she was. But if they weren't able to go see her right away, it had to be me. I had to ask some of those questions. And, I'd be lying if I said sometimes I wasn't making it up or trying to play the role. I wasn't a professional in counseling, or I didn't always know the best avenues to direct them. And so those would be other conversations where I'd have to talk to coaches, maybe my athletic director, of just, hey, where's the right way to kind of get, to steer this student or this player, and how can we best help them here? What do we kind of offer? So.
Yeah, those are great points. It seems like I've been thinking about this a lot recently in terms of like having a roadmap for athletes, for students, of different resources that are available, and understanding for ourselves, regardless of what profession we are, is we don't have to be everything for everybody. And just knowing what those available resources are can be helpful enough to direct people, but understanding what is our role and maybe where our role isn't.
Right. Absolutely. Where do we draw the line? To I remember having those conversations in my head a lot of, is this one of those moments where I need to report these things, or these are conversations. And as a young coach specifically, I always lean towards, not being sure, and then as I got older, I would understand. I would talk to more coaches, or maybe even more professionals, and have a better understanding of, hey, this is something I need to take serious. And I don't need to always have the right answers, but I need to know, as a coach, it's my responsibility to get them in the right direction and to put them in position to deal with some of these problems, and to get, professional help, or whatever the issue may have been. It was definitely a responsibility I held at a high level to try to get them in the right direction.
Yeah. And Michelle, you see a lot of athletes in your clinic who have real concerns going on and like need to see, an actual specialist. What are some of those things that you see?
Well, I think just like you, when it comes to male specific health concerns, when it comes to the gut, stress goes to the gut. And so a lot of times, athletes will come to me and say, my stomach hurts. What's wrong with my stomach? And I'll bet there may be something wrong with the stomach. A lot of times it has everything to do outside of the stomach, because stress and anxiety or boredom, that all affects our brain, that then sends neurotransmitters to our gut. So someone may have GI related symptoms, but it may be something completely unrelated to the GI tract. That just tends to be where they feel it. But also when we talk about nutrition, so a lot of times people will say, well, I'm allergic to something. Why can't I eat a whole pizza like I did when I was 20? Well, most of us aren't 20 anymore, and your body's trying to protect you and trying to tell your brain that maybe what you're eating is not actually normal eating behaviors. Amy, when patients come to see you in clinic, they often say, what's wrong with my penis? Why do I have erectile dysfunction? And I know you tell me all the time that many times it has nothing to do with that end organ. It has everything to do with everything else going on in the body, the brain, the nutrition, the exercise, the stress, the medications. All of that affects one particular organ. So people come to me with GI symptoms. People come to you with, let's say, erectile dysfunction or other male-specific health concerns. But we can address the penis. We can address the stomach. But many times it's everything beyond that. And we really need to be addressing everything else.
Yeah, and you put all of those things that every adult and a lot of children face, and then you add the performance of, you got to get on the field tomorrow and perform at your best and win this game, right? And a normal response for anyone in that situation would be to have anxiety and stress and excitement and all those other, emotions. So, wow, John, I love your maturity in discussing these issues. We work together in a different space on penile implants. So to hear your experience as a coach and as a counselor and as an advocate and a mentor for people is just really fun for me to hear. And I think, you had good coaches, and it seems like you were a good coach for a lot of people. So any other, last minute thoughts, Michelle, from you, Johnny, from you, before we wrap this up?
Yeah. And that was a big part of what I liked as a coach. It was playing all those other roles and just being a part of it. Cause again, being a team guy, that's again, where I see it in the healthcare and learning from you in particularly of seeing how well connected you are and how you can reach out and find answers like that. I think that is such an advantage. And again, I think teaching people that and being okay with asking questions, being okay with being open and honest is just such a good way to live and be proactive, builds confidence, and just gets you to where I think you need to be. Because why suffer not knowing something when the resources are there? But if you don't know where those resources are, you got to ask and just promoting that. So it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to be new. It's okay to ask those questions. And so I think that, again, just promoting that positivity is something that's, I think, really special. And it's something that a lot of people take advantage of when they don't know that it's so important. They can easily just go the other way and not ask a question and then be left to wonder, for the next month, they could have asked that question. And so why not? Why not ask that question? Why not promote that positivity and that vulnerability and get things moving forward? That's how you grow. So.
Awesome. You heard it from the person himself, the athlete himself. It's okay to be vulnerable, folks.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Johnny. It was great to have you on the podcast. Michelle, it was a pleasure having you on here as well.
Yes. Thank you to the both of you.
Thank you.
That's all, folks. I'm Amy Perlman.
And I'm Michelle Perlman. Thank you for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.